It's the maiden voyage with the kayak motor and the pulse width modulator. Stay tuned and I'll tell you how it goes. Well, everything is off to a great start. You know, my buddy and I have always wanted to go down and fish Buzzards Bay off the Cape Fear River on the rising and then the falling tide, but we never could do that just with pedal power. The tide would get too low and you get closed out. But with the motor, we were able to launch at a tide level of 2.0 and have plenty of depth to use the motors to get on down. Now, I was running my pulse width modulator at about 60%. And so that means that I'm conserving energy, yet still getting enough forward momentum to move this heavy kayak with humans and gear and battery forward. Now, there have been a number of questions in earlier videos about what is the value of a pulse width modulator on a kayak motor. Well, the easiest way to explain it is to use an analogy. Think of a hot dog eating contest. You've got the guy who grabs 3 or 4 dogs and tries to stuff them into his mouth with dogs and bun and everything falling down into his lap. Can't get it all in the mouth. And then you got the consummate professional who takes one dog at a time, dips it in water, gets it down, swallows it, and eats it. And that's the same thing the pulse width modulator does. Without a pulse width modulator, you have all that electrical energy flowing from your battery to the motor, and it can't consume it all. It loses a lot of that juice in heat. But with the pulse width modulator, it modulates it, it pulses it out there, so you're getting the same forward momentum while consuming less energy because it's not lost to heat. So on the way down here, I was playing using the meter I have right here. Everything's underneath the seat, to try and see what the optimum speed would be with the pedal assist. And I concluded between 60 and 70% was good for the traveling that I wanted to do. It's about 2 miles, and I'll show you the track I followed using the Angler app to get down here. Now the big question, of course, is how long will my battery last in a normal day of fishing? Now once we get here, like right here, I'm fishing this channel right here, and I'm not using the motor to do anything here. I'll use the pedals to sneak up and around, but once I get to the upper end of this, I'm going to want to turn the motor back on to get down to the next cove. And that is the big question. Now, just like with no pulse width modulator, I've got the motor right here on the left, and I can move it up and out of the water fairly easily. Now, my buddy Dick did a different mount. I just have a 2x4 stretched across a utility track that goes in back of my kayak, but he actually mounted it back to his boondocks. And I think that's going to be a better solution. I'm going to look at moving it back there because it moves the motor farther back towards the end of the boat where, you know, you've got the curve going in, but it's still close enough to be able to grab it and pull it up when you're about to hit a sandbar or an oyster bed. Well, let's get to fishing, and I'll give you more insights on the motor as the day goes on. You know, one of the advantages of being down here at Buzzards Bay as the tide cycle goes from low through high down to low again, is you get to see all the guide boats, and you can keep your eyeballs on those and get some better clues as to where the fish is. You know, one of the things I'm learning with these motors is I actually need to put an anchor trolley on this side of my kayak because, you know, doing everything on my left-hand side with the motor over here is kind of obnoxious. Things get in the way of each other. Okay, he's in front of my boat. Ooh, he's a nice fish. These Buzzard Bay Reds are known to be big. He might be over slot. Nope, he's good. He's 26. That means he's got a date with a plate. My control is right here, and it makes it very easy. I can steer with one hand, and now I can sneak up with the other. You know, another advantage of this pulse width modulator is all of a sudden my drive unit's squeaking, so I can't really sneak up. But with the pulse width, I can dial this way down and gently cruise into where I want to go fish. Nice. Now, another thing to know about these pulse width modulators is that the higher the frequency you get, the less you're going to hear of a hum. I watched a video where a guy was able to find one at 21 kilohertz, and that was silent. This one right here was the biggest I could find, and it was only 15, and I definitely hear a hum coming out of here. It's not enough to bug me, but it is additional noise on the kayak. See some stuff going on down here in this cove, so I'm going to sneak down here and see what's going on. So where'd we end up in power consumption? Unfortunately, it ends up being subjective because I don't really have a scientific way to measure the consumption, and the profiles of the trips were all different in terms of how often I was actually using the motor and the speed at which I was running it. I will say that with the pulse width modulator, my battery charger seemed to indicate that there was more juice left in the battery. So I think the science is that it will be an advantage, but I can't prove it. Bottom line, on this pulse width modulator, I really like it because it gives me a lot more flexibility with the motor than I had without it. The ability to pull up my drive unit and put this on like 10% and just sneak up is just huge when you've got a squeaky unit like I've got today. I've got a WD-40 it, oil it, I guess. And the extra cost of, I think it was about $25 for that capability, I think is well worth it. So I'm going to give the PWM a big thumbs up and recommend that if you guys have a kayak motor, you seriously look into it. Comments? Throw it down below. Thanks.